You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, the #1 resource for growing your function musician business. If you're a solo wedding singer, part of a 12-piece luxury show band, or anything in between, and want to learn from other successful musicians, you're in the right place.
You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 13. My name is Jack, and I am your host for this podcast, and I am super excited to have you here. This podcast is all about helping you grow and manage your function musician business. Each week, I sit down with an amazing guest, and we discuss what's worked for them, what hasn't, and the valuable lessons that they've learned along the way. And together, we'll explore how to build a successful business without burning out in the process. As usual, there's just a couple of things I want to remind you of before we get into today's episode. There's now only 1 week left to get your questions in for the mini episodes that we will be recording about a week from when this goes out. We've had some really great questions in so far, and I'm really excited to dive into this. And I think it's going to be a really fun and helpful part to the podcast. So if you have a question or you'd like some specific help with something in your business, then get in touch via email or Instagram, which you can find in the episode description. I'd also like to remind you that there is only a few weeks left to enter the giveaway that I'm running over on Instagram, where you can win a £100 Amazon gift voucher, which you can use on some new equipment or something else that will help your business grow. All you have to do is comment and share a favorite episode to your story. And that's it. Right, let's get into today's episode. I really hope you enjoy my conversation with Tim Sentence. You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, and on today's episode, I'm joined by musician turned entrepreneur and the founder of Boujee Music, Tim Sentence. Tim, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you very much. Hello, great to be here.
Yeah, so we were introduced by our mutual friend, Paul Glover, who was on last week's episode. And when Paul described you, he used the words...
here we go.
very successful and very impressive. So,
oh, wow, okay.
No pressure.
So, downhill from here.
Good episode. No, just kidding. I am really intrigued to hear your story and all about your business. For this episode, we're going to focus our conversation a bit later on, and that would be into like transitioning from freelance musician into a business owner or entrepreneur, which for me is a really exciting conversation because it's kind of where I'm at the minute in my own business. So selfishly, I'm very excited to talk about that sort of stuff. Before we get into all of that, I'd love to go back and hear a little bit about your journey, where you got started, and kind of what's brought you to where you are today.
Sure. Well, I would say the short answer is it was a very long and roundabout journey to where I am today. There was no clever plan or, clear focus. It's been very much just a journey of taking opportunities and following what I wanted to do or what I thought I wanted to do each time, and then seeing where that led me, and just trying to take opportunities and go with things that I felt I was good at and passionate about. So that's why I grew up in a musical family. My mum was a music teacher. My dad was more creative minded. He wrote his own songs. He liked jazz and prog rock and that sort of thing. So I had that kind of musical grounding, but I always thought I'm just not dedicated enough to be a professional musician. I don't enjoy practice, without my mum cracking the whip. Her words, not mine. I just wouldn't have been practicing. So I actually went to study economics originally, and it was only after doing that for 3 years, trying some work experience in the city, and finding that it wasn't what I thought it would be, and I wasn't enjoying it like I thought I would, that I changed path and went and studied jazz for 2 years at the Birmingham Conservatoire. So
that's
a slight change. It's quite a shift, isn't it? It's quite a shift. But that's what I mean. I think that there wasn't some great. I didn't know what I was going to do to start with. I wasn't sure where I was going. And it was only when I was, traveling into the city on the tube, listening to like old albums of Cannibal Adderley and Sonny Rollins and all these great jazz players, that I realized that's what I wanted to be involved in, that, and not, on the tube headed into town. So obviously after studying at Birmingham, I did actually end up in London, but it was to pursue an exciting career as a professional musician. And I did that for 10 years. And then along the way, started our live music agency, which is now called Boujee Music, Boujee, for anyone who, it's not the easiest word to spell. And it's, it was through that experience of being a professional musician, working with lots of wedding bands, good wedding bands, bad wedding bands, learning what to do and what not to do. That made us, it's me and my wife that started Boujee Music. Yeah. We wanted to do our own thing. We wanted to do it the way that we thought was the right way for musicians and the right way for couples. And so that's why we started Boujee Music, and that's kind of how it evolved.
Yeah, awesome, man. So, just quickly, what do you play? What do you singer? Are you drummer?
The key question. Singing is strictly limited to backing vocals. I play keyboards and saxophone. I did play the violin in my more classical orientated days, but sax and piano.
Awesome. And that was sort of always as a function musician, or did you do original stuff? Or
I think my original plan was to make a career in jazz. It is jazz that I love the most. That's my true passion. But naturally, that is hard to do, to make a career out of jazz and to make money from it. Yeah. So that's where I really fell into the function scene, which, I did do some teaching. I did try some music production. I tried lots of different parts of the music industry to see where I could find my skill and where I could make a career. But it was in functions that and performing and just gigging that I still got to do that live thing and still get to make music and be creative, but also make a career and pay the bills at the end of the day.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting, isn't it, when you're a kid, a lot of people, you're definitely not told that music is probably a viable career option. It's like you've got to become famous, or that's the only option, right? And even with parents that were in sort of music, maybe that's still not enforced as much. But I know obviously we've spoken about before, and you did a talk with at your old school last night about was that what it was about? Right. It's about what's possible for you as a musician, what career choices you can make, or?
I think it was just trying to show students. These are 16, 17, 18-year-old students. So I know at that age, like I said, I thought I wanted to be a banker in the city. So, but they don't necessarily know where their passion lies. But just trying to open their eyes to what the possibilities are in music, because exactly as you said, there's a very narrow window of perception of what the options are for being a musician, and there's always, from the outside, this concept of making it, I'm air quoting heavily here, around making it and getting a big break and other kind of cliche phrases that just don't really happen in reality. And there's this whole, beautiful industry and ways that you can be in music and in performance that are not seen, but are still so enjoyable and talented and creative. And it's just trying to show that as much as possible and show the options that are there.
Yeah. And so I know you've kind of already mentioned why you started your current business, which is just to do it better than, I guess, other people that you'd worked for, right?
I would not like to say better. That sounds. I think it was through some of the maybe more negative experiences we had working with companies and bands that we did. One of our core things to this day is treating the musicians right as well. So providing good work, respectful work, well-paid work. Originally, we were generating work for ourselves. Me and my wife Lizzie. We wanted to. We played all the gigs that we brought in as the business. So we were the musicians as well as the business owners, and I think that's where we are maybe a little bit different to some of the other agencies and companies out there that come from this business side rather than the music and performance side. They just it's just natural. You have a different mindset around it rather than knowing what it's like. I've been there loading gear out at 3 a.m. And that's just going through that experience. It just gives you a different perspective on what it is to be a musician and how it feels to be treated. And we just wanted to do that the right way as well as obviously provide great music, great performance, great entertainment for couples and clients.
Yeah. So, who are your main sort of clients for Boujee Music? Just tell us as much as you can or want about Boujee Music.
Well, I think that's a great question because it's not something that is something that we started out with an idea of what we wanted, and then it evolved into something completely different. So when we started, it was 9 years ago now, and we started, and the business was actually called All Town Music originally, our first name, and we wanted Uptown Music, but someone nicked it 3 months before us, so we had to settle on something else. And it never quite sat right with us, that name, but you have to start with something, right? So we were All Town Music, and we were in London, we were in the city, and we thought, let's do loads of corporate work. We're naive here. We've never run a business before. Let's get all the big corporate work, be really well paid. There's loads of hotels, there's loads of big business around. Let's do that. And then we booked in for a wedding fair, the National Wedding Show, to kind of get some initial business off the ground. And just as a couple, me and Lizzie being a couple and chatting to other couples, it just worked. We just, they understood us, we understood them. We got what they wanted from their day and how important it was to them. And we just knew how to talk to couples because we were a couple. So, that kind of big, fancy corporate glitzy dream was not really where we ended up. And when the pandemic rolled around 5 or 6 years later, and we had no gigs for 18 months, we rebranded as Boujee Music. And by that point, we were like, we're doing almost exclusively weddings anyway. Let's serve couples. Let's focus on couples. Let's make it all about weddings. That's what we're best at. So let's go with that. So that's where Boujee Music is right now. We do 90 to 95% weddings. Obviously, we do some corporate events, we do some parties, but it's really all about weddings. That's what we specialize in.
Mm-hmm. And do you find that having that niche and being able to market specific to that niche is helpful?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's one of the things. I work with a sales and marketing mentor in the wedding industry, and that's the first thing that we did was figure out who are we appealing to, who are we trying, who is our ideal customer. And once you narrow in on that, it's very hard to speak to multiple people at the same time, and actually resonate with them and do it properly. So it was really important to identify that we are in weddings, we are speaking to couples, mainly brides, obviously, and that's exactly what we try to do.
So I think I'm going to say where I'm kind of at the minute with this kind of thing. So I think you've got to start thinking about the future and what you want to do later in life with these freelance careers that we've got. And for me as a videographer, I don't want to, I don't think I can be running around with a camera until I retire at 60 or whatever that age is. So I've got to start thinking about how I grow this business into something else. And that's where that kind of mindset shift comes in, of moving from a freelancer to an entrepreneur or business owner. It's quite scary. So, I mean, how did you find that when you first sort of had that idea and that transition?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's knowing that it's not going to be possible forever. And I think that was one of the things that we knew when we started the business. Like I say, I tried other things like production and teaching that are potential ways out of, gigging every Friday, Saturday night for the rest of your life. But it was the business that really excited me the most. And I think it tapped into the things that I personally am good at, which is, I've got that financial background and I love spreadsheets and numbers and all that nerdy stuff. So, that really, I really enjoyed that side of it. So, and in terms of taking the leap of faith, I guess, like I say, it wasn't some big plan thing. It's just evolved over time.
Yeah, and a little bit.
100%. Yeah. And, it's all very well setting 5-year plans, and I have my goals for 5 years. I'm sure most people have an idea of where they want to be in 5, 10 years, whatever, but it never pans out that way. It's just like, it's a vision that you have. It's something to aim for and inspire you and motivate you, but you have to evolve along the way. You have to take opportunities. You have to see what happens. And planning too far in advance and then waiting for that perfect moment or trying to do the perfect thing is just it causes more problems than it solves. I'm naturally an overthinker and a perfectionist, and I promise me I do not say that as a brag at all. It's the main problem I have is wanting something to be perfect before moving forward. But you just have to go for it and then fail, learn, do it again, and just keep repeating that.
Yeah, the perfectionism thing, it holds a lot of people back, and my wife especially, and she does listen to this podcast even though she has no interest in music or whatever, but yeah, she struggles with like it has to be exactly right how I've got it in my head before I can put it out there, or I can't put it out there, and it holds her back a little bit sometimes, but she's definitely getting better at it. I haven't struggled with that so much, to be honest. I've always thought done is better than perfect, and just
done is better than perfect,
get it out and prove it later.
Yeah, I've got another phrase I've heard from a mentor is, and I'll clean up the language slightly. I'm sure you can fill in the gaps, but 80% done is 100% freaking awesome. So yeah, and that's a great thing to live for when you're trying to work with other people as well and build a team. It's easy to want things done exactly as you did it and think that that's the best and only way, but there's no way to move a business forward if you have that mentality.
Yeah, the building a team part, that's sort of where I'm at the minute in my business, and that's the hardest part. One, for letting go and realizing that other people can do things, if not as good as you, probably better than you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I really struggle with that, and not knowing that there's better people than me. I just can't let go of the little things for some reason. But also finding people that you trust as well. So, I mean, do you guys employ people or use freelancers, or how does that work?
Well, we have a team. Everyone is freelance at the moment. And we started by using the musicians in our network who are more business minded or admin minded. Obviously lots of musicians are creative and don't love emails and spreadsheets and things like that, but some of us do. And so using the people that we already knew and giving them roles within the admin side of Boujee. And it was just a process of evolution, really. We were still figuring out how to grow the business, how to create systems and processes, and how to train people. It started from there, using people we know. And then as we've got bigger, we've obviously had to go out and recruit from outside our network, which is another kind of scary thing. But I think that's where your eyes are really opened up as to it's only your self-limiting beliefs that make you think there's no one out there that can do it. It's madness. The world is full of very talented people who do, specialize in things that you are only kind of learning. So once you kind of get over that and you start to look outside and recruit from this big pool of people in the world, it's amazing. Yeah, it just opens up so many options. It's just a confidence thing, I think, where you're, like certainly it was for me, just about the confidence of going out there and finding someone and knowing even how to go about that. I've never worked in a corporate structure. I've never had like a line manager or any, formal training around that. So it's all just learning and discovery.
Yeah. How does the dynamic work with your wife? Do you both kind of run it together, or do you have like specific roles and things like that?
Yeah, great question. I think it's evolved a lot over the years. When we started, everything was together, and there wasn't a huge amount of work to do, so we did everything together. We had loads of time to just sit down and just work through stuff. And then as we grew, we've had to become split the business and be more segmented about what we do. Lizzie is a natural entertainer. She's very creative. She's a performer. So anything that needs creative flair and like an eye of visuals and that kind of thing, she is amazing at. So, social media and video and the image of a band and ideas for new things, that's really where she is amazing. And then I naturally love the business side of stuff, the numbers, sales and marketing. So I think we naturally fall into those roles. There's also the small matter of having a family and 2 young boys and juggling that responsibility as well. So that was another evolution. And actually probably the main trigger behind moving from being a musician to just focusing on the business. It's again, just figuring it out, but you have to, it's easier to work together when you're not trying to do the same thing, to identify what each other's strengths are and to give up, again, control of those areas and work together in that way.
This podcast is sponsored by my business, InFocus Recording Company. At InFocus, we specialize in creating exciting cinematic show reels for professional function musicians. We also offer photo shoots and custom logo design, helping you bring all your branding together into one cohesive package. Whether you're a solo artist or part of a 12-piece luxury show band, having standout promo material and strong branding is essential to growing your business and booking more gigs. If you're interested in checking out some of our work and learning more, head over to infocusrecordingcompany.co.uk. So, I mean, at the minute, how much sort of work are you doing in the business? Because I guess where I kind of want to get to eventually is being able to put myself on top of the business and like be able to run day to day without me doing stuff. That's kind of where you want to get to at the end goal, right? So is that kind of where you are now, or where you want to be, or?
Yeah, I think, it's a constant challenge to continually move up and be less in the weeds and in the day to day. It's something that I'm definitely still learning about how to do. But I would say, more and more of my time I'm able to be on the business, which in my mind is kind of, the more sales and marketing orientated stuff, new ideas for services and brands and products, branding, like we recently launched Meta ads, so kind of taking on a new project like that and understanding that, working with a social media team, and just kind of coordinating and managing everything that's happening, and learning to not get involved in exactly how thing is done, and just kind of strategize around it. So it's definitely a constant challenge, and there's always bits that you get pulled into. But I think once you start to learn to let go and you trust the people that you work with, it does become easier. And it's like anything. It's practice of letting go, practice of giving people things. You get better at it. You get better at giving people feedback, and helping them learn as well, and not just doing it for them, which is the easiest thing to be drawn into. Not because of anything they're doing, just purely because of your own tendency to try and get involved. So it's something that I'm getting better at, but it's definitely one of the main things that I think as an entrepreneur in this stage of growth, where it's early growth, that you're having to really battle with is which roles do I bring people in for? Which roles do I keep? You're having to assess where your time is most valuable, where your skills are most valuable, and then be really quite disciplined about those boundaries around what you get drawn into, and what sometimes you just have to watch something happen and know that it's not quite going to work out. But to go in there and fix it is actually not, it's going to, in the long term, it's going to actually limit everyone's learning and limit the business as a whole.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what would you say is the sort of first step in that process then? And I guess that is handing things off to other people, but what would that kind of first step look like, do you think?
I think there's a couple of ways to think about it. Different people that I've learned from have different approaches. Ultimately, if you view your time as having a value, depending on the work that you're doing, the thing that you want to start with is the lowest value things. So that inevitably is more admin orientated tasks. So emails or very repetitive processes. You can look at it from a time value point of view, but then sometimes it's easier to look at what is the process that gets done the most frequently, because as soon as you give that away, then that frees up the most time. So potentially that could have a greater impact. And if it's a very repetitive thing, so a great example for, a literal example of what we did in the very early stages was just replying to that first email, that first inquiry email. Are you free on this date? What's the price for this? Blah, blah, blah. Just having someone who could respond to that email with a template, customize it, maybe work out a price once you kind of get into that process as well. And that's just a very small part, but it happens all the time. So actually that buys you back a lot of time that you would have otherwise spent yourself just constantly on the emails, being distracted from whatever kind of deep work you're supposed to be doing, and sending that initial email. So a couple of ways to think about it, but ultimately you just want to use your time in the most valuable way, and it's just about constantly assessing where that is and what you can give up next. Yeah.
And I think you sort of mentioned this briefly as well, but systems and automation and things like that, and figuring those things out must be insanely important. Because like for me at the minute, everything's kind of in my head or it's in my notes and stuff. So to pass something off to someone else, you need to create these sort of like written down proper systems of how things
Absolutely.
work. So that must be like a key part as well.
Yeah, you're 100% right. That is, that's the first thing. Once you learn how to kind of create a process, and create something that someone else can follow, and put what you do into a process and have someone follow that. That's the first trick. I mean, there's lots of ways to do it, and the game has changed a lot on that. For example, now we use Scribe. I don't know if you've come across that software, but it basically, as you're using your browser, or even it can even track your whole computer, every click, every keyboard tap is recorded, and Scribe automatically takes a screenshot of what happens at that moment and creates a step for it, and creates what you did on that step. So it's creating a process for you as you complete a task. So whereas when we started, I built everything in Word docs and I had to type everything out manually, and I didn't have any screenshots because that would have taken forever to have a screenshot of every single step. So it's definitely got easier to create that kind of thing. But ultimately, it's about getting it out of your head and getting it on a piece of paper. And this is another area where perfectionism is a nightmare, because you want that process to be perfect before you hand it over to someone, but it never will be, because there will always be bits that you miss and things that go wrong, and you just need to get it on paper, give it to someone. When it goes wrong, change it, add a step, remove a step, whatever, and learn by that way.
There must be so much more like time management things involved as well, and getting everyone on board with that kind of thing, and just being way more organized than a freelancer generally is, I would say, maybe. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, the best example of this is coming back from the lockdown and the pandemic, which was obviously a very hard time, because no one was gigging, and just constantly moving events and moving dates and postponing everything and not really knowing what was going to happen. But in some ways that was easier than afterwards, when everything just exploded overnight and you've got postponed events happening at the same time as newly booked events, and every musician is getting COVID on 24 hours notice and having to self-isolate. So that whole period coming out of that was where I really learned about time management and how to structure your day and your week and everything. It's something that I learned eventually after doing it for 2 years and failing miserably to manage all that stuff. And I had to actually start working with a mentor to help me understand how to deal with, that whole side of things, how to structure your time, how to structure your week. So that in itself is a whole skill. And I think as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, your business is always limited by you as an individual, because everything comes from you. Every idea, every process, everything is just an amplification of what you do. So whenever the business is limited, unfortunately, as ego bashing as it is, it always comes back to you as the person at the head of the business, for you to figure out what it is that's limiting you personally. And then as soon as you unlock that, that's usually what unlocks the next step of business growth as well. Yeah.
So, I mean, I want to just sort of bring this back to musicians who may be thinking, like, what kind of business would I want to start here? Like, it's not
how on earth is this relevant to me, basically?
Yeah, exactly. But like, I think it absolutely definitely is. But I think I just want to maybe just come up with a few ideas of what that might look like for a musician, and because they might not want to start an agency, but maybe they would want to. They have a band that they want to be able to send out without them being involved, and they want to grow that to something bigger than them, as we said. So, I mean, maybe this is throwing under the bus a little bit, but do you have any kind of ideas of what that might look like?
So you mean for someone who maybe is in music at the moment and still performing or teaching or whatever it is, and then figuring out a way to step back from that and build it into a business?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think the tricky bit is that if you're constantly trading your time for money, then there isn't a lot of room for building a business. So it's only when you can bring in someone else and have them trade their time and then make money off that as a whole. So whether it's providing a service or providing a product of some kind, that's essentially what a business is. So until you figure out a way to stop it just being the trade of your own time for someone else's money, and start making, start building something where you're not involved, that's where the opportunity is. So I guess you just have to look at what you're doing, where your skills are, where you're making money, and thinking about what can I not, it sounds counterintuitive, but what can I not do? What are the things that I can actually package up and create as a product or a service or something. So let's say you're in music production and you are amazing at mastering albums and whatever audio tracks. You could potentially teach someone how to do that, or how to do a small part of it, so that when someone comes in and wants a track mastered with your particular sound and your skill set, it's not just you having to do that entire process. There is someone else there that can maybe do 40, 50, 60% of the work. You can do the most difficult, the most challenging, the most creative 40, 20%, whatever. And then that frees up all that time. As long as you're paying that person less than you're charging, that's a margin right there. That's a business. Yeah. So it's you have to be quite self-analytical about what you do and what parts of it other people can do. But until you find ways that other people can do what you're doing, you're just going to continually trade your time for money. And the only way to make more money that way is for your time to be more and more valuable. And there's always a limit to that. There's always a limit to how much money you can make per hour until someone else comes in.
But that's essentially just having a job as well, right?
Well, yes. And the paradox of building a business to start with is that you essentially just build your own job, and then you start to employ other people and you realize, there's actually no money left at the end. I have just built myself a job rather than a business. It's a big challenge, but you have to start somewhere.
It's scary as well. It is scary.
Very scary. Very scary.
Crazy. Awesome, man. That kind of covers all my questions. Is there anything else you think we need to discuss about moving from freelancer to business owner?
I think the hardest thing for me was actually that last bit of giving up my identity as a musician.
Right, yeah. I didn't ask. I was going to ask that. Do you still perform at all now, or is that gone?
I'm not performing at the moment, and I would say, given that my main involvement with playing is helping my 6-year-old with his, one hand at a time piano. It's not. I'm not really in performing and practicing at all, and that was a hard decision to make, because I think everyone who's creative and has a passion for what they're doing, identify, that's a huge part of your identity and who you are. When someone says, what do you do? And you say, I'm a musician, or if I'm feeling particularly cool, I'll put the word jazz in there as well. Nice. And that's your calling card as a person. You're this creative person who makes music and goes out there and has their own thing. So to give that up is quite hard. And by the end, it was very clear that I had too much to do. I couldn't go out and gig, and I couldn't run the business at the same time. And I felt like I was basically failing at both. So something had to give. But it was just, that taking that leap of saying, okay, I can let go of that identity as a musician, and rebuild how I see myself as a business owner. It took me ages to even use the word entrepreneur, because it still, to me, sounds a little bit, like I'm full of myself, but ultimately that is what I do. And it's just rebuilding that kind of identity of who you are and what your work is. That's the hardest bit, the hardest leap. So, even when the work is there and the business is there and you've done everything, it's just that last bit to kind of be like, no, I'm letting go of that thing. And the hardest thing in business is focus, is knowing exactly one thing that you need to work on and focus on the most. And as long as I was a musician and a business owner, I was never going to be able to truly focus on the business and grow it. So it was something that had to happen, but it was a hard decision for sure.
Yeah. I found, I've been freelance in various different things for a few years now. And it's only over the last couple of years where I've really started to see myself as a business owner, that I've actually, that's now where I'm getting the most enjoyment as well. Like I love doing videography. I love making videos and stuff, but really, if I think about it, I get the most enjoyment from running and growing the business.
Yeah.
That's not for everyone. So I mean, this episode probably isn't for everyone, but I think if you do start thinking like that, I think that other people would also really enjoy that part of it.
100%. And I personally, like I say, it's been a long journey getting from being a full-time musician and having that as my identity to now just being a full-time business owner and entrepreneur, and having hopefully trying not to make that my identity so that I don't have some struggle to let go of that in the future. But you know what I mean? If anyone else is on that journey and would like some help, I would love to hear from them. And see if I can offer anything, because that's something that I'm very passionate about. I've learned so much from mentors that I've worked with, and I would love to be able to help other people on this journey as well. So I'm at Tim Sentence on Instagram, spelt Sentence with an A, and I'd love to hear of anyone who is on this journey or thinking of being on this journey, and to see if we can see if I can help in any way, or I'm sure I can learn a lot from other people as well. Yeah,
that's great, man. I love that. So I feel like that brings us nicely onto some of your gig experiences, some of your good ones and some of your bad ones. I know you. Just from what we spoke about earlier, I know there's something good coming up. So recently I like to start with the bad ones and then end with something nice. So what have you got for us, man?
Well, I think I wouldn't describe it as a bad experience, because it was actually one of the most fun months of my life. But the band I was in at the time, which is entertainingly called Love Shovel, and Paul, who we had mentioned earlier, who put us in touch, was actually part of this band. We did a month of playing gigs in the Alps, and so. It was a chaotic and enjoyable month, but the story of getting out there, we made a right meal of it. We originally packed everything into Paul's, what's it called, bongo, I think it's called, just a big kind of almost camper van-y type thing, and we packed all of our instruments, all of our gear, and 5 of us into that van, to the extent where it was actually so heavy that every time we went over a bump in the road, the suspension would hit the bottom of the suspension and make this horrific sound. We pulled over on the side of the motorway, repacked everything, didn't make any difference, had to turn around, had to go back, sleep on a sofa, borrow a trailer from a friend, try again the next day. So now we're on a bit of a clock, because obviously we're trying to get to the Alps for our first après gig. We got a puncture, and so then had to repair the puncture on the trailer. In repairing the puncture, we used a a pump. We used a pump that is powered off the car battery. So then we ran the car battery down. So then we had to get a jump start from my now wife's father. But bear in mind, this is about 18 hours after we started our journey. We're actually about a mile from where we started. After we got over all of that, we did manage to get on the ferry. We did manage to drive across France. We did manage to get to that first après gig with not much time to spare. But the hilarious thing that stayed with us the whole trip was that we had left the keys to the trailer, which contained all our gear, in the UK. So we did message someone else to get them posted across, and they did actually get posted and put in. They were hiding in a post box for at least 2 weeks before we realised. But we basically had to unscrew the hinge of the trailer door for every gig, and we were gigging 6, 7, 8 times a week. So 6, 7, 8 times a week we would be unscrewing all the hinges on the trailer door, taking the door off the hinges, getting everything out, putting the door back on. So I think that gives you an idea of just the chaos that ensued on that trip. But like I say, it was the most fun month of my life. It's actually the month that me and my wife got together, because she was in the band as well. She was the singer. So what's the expression? It had a happy ending, but it was a fun and chaotic month for sure.
Awesome, man. That's good. That kind of sounds like a good and a bad one.
Well, maybe I did. Yeah, I killed 2 birds with one stone there. Maybe. Yeah.
Have you got another good one for us, though?
A good one. I just think, as I'm not a musician anymore, I inevitably remember kind of the career highlights. You always have those venues that you want to tick off on your bucket list. So I got to play the Royal Albert Hall very early on in my career. I got to play in some amazing abroad destinations. We did a New Year's Eve gig in Oman where, we got to go and sit on the beach for a day and then go and do a gig in the evening. That's when we talked about making it earlier, but that did feel like we made it, to be honest. And some really, some big, some of the bigger crowds that I played to, I wouldn't say I necessarily enjoyed those in the moment because I was so terrified of playing something wrong. But playing to 10 or 12,000 people at the 80s festivals, and also supporting Simply Red in Switzerland with an artist, those are kind of big gigs that they're the reason that you become a musician, is to play those kind of gigs and with those for those kind of bands. So those really stick out to me. But at the same time, it's almost those green room hangs and the kind of chaotic, fun misadventures of being a band that I enjoyed as much, because those performances are over in 5-10 minutes often, and what really most of your time is spent with musicians, with people, and that's what I miss the most, is just hanging out with musicians, being with creative people, having fun, being part of that banter and that fun. Those are the best memories that I have, for sure.
Do you get that kind of like social environment anymore with being a business owner? Because I definitely don't get that. Like, I miss just going back and being employed from like jobs when I was younger, and like, working with people and stuff like that. That is definitely something that I do miss from being from self-employed and being a business owner.
Definitely, being a business owner can be lonely, and I think in the last couple of years, I think I've discovered new groups of entrepreneurs and business owners that I can have. It's not the same because you're not spending that kind of day-to-day downtime with them. It's more like you're meeting up and you're sharing, over a drink or a coffee or like a networking event or something like that. But it gives you a bit of a sense of being part of a group rather than just this kind of lone wolf on your own trekking through a horrific journey. But I would say I was very happy to go to a rehearsal for one of our bands last week and just be in the room listening to the guys play, and sitting on my hands and not saying anything intentionally, not getting involved, but still being able to be there and just hear the music being made. I used to MD the band, and so hearing the MD just like cool hits and tweak the arrangements and stuff, that was the stuff that I always really enjoyed musically. So occasionally I do still get those opportunities.
I mean, I know we spoke about this a little bit already, but you don't play anymore, but could you play if you wanted to, or is it just a time thing? Or I know you said about the focus, but like I think one of the things we forgot to say is like, if you do become this boss, it doesn't stop you from doing some of those other things. Like you can pick and choose the best gigs that you want to do for stuff like that, right?
Of course, and that's definitely what we did. What I did to start with was be more selective around the gigs that I was taking and what I was doing. I mean, I would say it's not something that I have time for at the moment. And I'm naturally an all or nothing person. So I think I find it, and if you haven't played properly for a few years, sitting down and playing again can be a bit of a humbling experience. There's that side of it, but definitely, if there's a piano around and someone wants to have a little sing, or like, we had our neighbours around for Christmas and we did some carols, and I, played the piano for that, and I was messing around with the harmony and doing silly reharms and things like that. It's still in there somewhere. It's not very easily accessible and it doesn't come to the fingers as fluidly, but it's still, music is a huge part of my life. I listen to it all the time. I get very excited about it and singing along in my not massively tuneful way. So still a massive part of my life. It's just not the playing side of it that I have the time to do, really.
I suppose like it started as a hobby that turned into a business, and then it can go back into a hobby a bit.
There we go. Life is always full circle, isn't it?
Awesome, man. So on to our quick fire round.
Yes, this is the bit I was most worried about.
So first of all, right, where are we? What is the most effective thing that you've done to market yourself or your business?
I would say it would have to be rebranding. It would have to be, figuring out we spoke about it earlier, but figuring out who our ideal customer was, really sitting down and getting inside their head, figuring out what they want from a band, from music, from their wedding, from all parts of their life, understanding what is important to them, and then rebranding around, the marketing and the branding and everything to appeal to that kind of person. because we did it 5 or 6 years into our business journey, we had a fair amount of experience to kind of draw from of what people want. It's very hard when you're starting out to know who your ideal customer is.
Yeah.
So you need to evolve that over time. But yeah, I would say the rebrand and having everything aligned where it was all the messaging, all the branding, everything that we're trying to do, we were really clear on who we were trying to speak to and not worrying about everyone else. That was probably the most powerful thing we did.
Yeah. Is rebranding difficult? I feel like it's quite scary.
It's definitely long. It's definitely a long process. And even, I can't tell you how many words we discussed before we settled on Boujee. It's just, even that one thing is so important. It's the first thing that someone hears about your business. What's it called? And then it obviously has a connotation and an impression, and listeners will be able to judge whether we got that right or not. But it's every detail can be examined to the nth degree. And at some point you have to step back from it and go, okay, that's enough. We're close enough. What's the next thing? So that's the difficulty of it. Like we were talking about earlier, balancing perfectionism and wanting it to be right and good versus just not making any progress. And we had someone guide us through that whole process. The person who designed our current website was also a branding specialist. And so it was something that we went on together. And I think without that outside person, we would never have been able to do it. You need someone who is an outside voice and an outside perspective and who has experience getting to the end result to help you through it.
Yeah. I was going to say, using a professional for something like that, I feel like is quite important. But this is interesting as well, because I feel you said you started Boujee Music, rebranded after COVID, but I feel like I've known that name or your business for longer than that, but maybe that's just my memory failing on me. But
obviously, the branding is so powerful that's the impression you've got. That's what it is. It was definitely during the pandemic, and finding the time for something like that is something that I feel actually fortunate that we were gifted that time, as hard as it was. Was it
sort of in your mind to do it before?
I wanted to do it for years, because like I say, we weren't fully happy with all-time music. Finding the time for a project like that is very, very difficult. So that was a bit of a gift, to be honest.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people did have those little gifts from COVID. That was but anyway, on to our next one. What have you learned in the last 3 months that you wish you knew 3 years ago?
How hard it is to run paid ads online. What have I learned in the last 3 months? I think I've learned a lot about leadership and managing a team, and it's related to letting go, but trying to give people outcomes rather than prescribing processes for them to follow, which is the opposite of what we talked about earlier. But you need some element of system and processes for people to be able to learn how to do something and achieve a consistent result. But when you work with good people who do understand what to do and how to do it, sometimes you just need to say, this is the outcome, like, how do you solve it? How do you want to do it? And then just keep me updated, and come to me if there's a problem, but otherwise just crack on, and we know what we both want to achieve. So let's focus on that outcome rather than me checking everything you do and telling you exactly what to do, because people don't learn that way. You actually are not really saving much time if you're then constantly checking in with the people who you've employed to do the thing. I would say that's been a bit of a mindset shift in the last 3 months that I'm sure has held me back for way longer than 3 years.
And just to touch on that ads thing as well, are you running those yourself? Are you using a professional?
No, I wouldn't. I've learned enough to not try and delve into that level of tech. We have people helping us with that. I'd like to do that as well, but I again want to do it myself. But so I'm trying to find someone that can teach me how to do it properly, rather than just trying to figure out watching YouTube. That doesn't work for me. But that's another subject. Maybe a different episode, I think, on that one.
So if you were just starting out now, and I guess this is relevant to both as a musician and maybe as an agency owner as well. But if you were just starting out now, what is the first thing that you'd do?
It would be figure out who I want to sell to, who is my ideal customer, and then don't worry about anything else. When you start out, you inevitably have to take lots of different kinds of work to get things off the ground. But it's very easy to then end up doing everything for everyone, and none of it is particularly good. And you can't grow a business that is selling a million different products. You need to focus in on what you're good at. So think about who you're selling to and focus on what as small a product or a smaller service as you can, and just get good at that one thing and be known for that one thing.
Yeah, I think, as you said, it is, when you're first starting out, it is really good to experiment and see what you like doing the most as well, and kind of what resonates with who you're doing it for. But at some point, I mean, I've talked endlessly about niching down on this podcast.
Great.
I am definitely an advocate for it. But
it's very easy to say and hard to do, like many things, because you're having to turn away work, and as someone growing a business, that feels like madness. But it has to be done because the reward is greater in being focused and appealing really strongly to a specific kind of person, and the level that they resonate with what you do will be so extreme that they'll be convinced that you are perfect for them, rather than everyone thinking that's okay.
Yeah. If you try to appeal to everyone, you end up appealing to no one.
Absolutely.
So what is the biggest mistake that you've made in your business, and what did you learn from it?
The biggest mistake I made, and I've made this mistake many times before I learned it, was letting an opportunity that came along distract me from what I was supposed to be doing. So I'm mildly embarrassed to say that early on in the days of All Town Music, I got a cold call from someone about running Google AdWords, and worked with them for maybe 9 to 10 months with absolutely zero results, because that's probably their main business, is cold calling people who don't know what they're doing and getting their money. So things like that, where you see an opportunity and it feels like a big shiny thing, but actually it's just something you don't know about. And that's why it seems big and shiny, because you don't understand all the pitfalls. There's multiple times where I've learned or not learned that lesson. Signing up for a big luxury exhibition, that because someone found me and emailed me and we had a chat and it sounded like a good idea, and actually thinking, no, we're supposed to be doing weddings. Why am I going to this luxury event? And then you're in too deep, and it takes up a huge amount of time and energy. That mistake of being distracted by shiny objects and not being able to just say no to stuff. Yeah,
that's a good answer. And then lastly, do you use any specific tools or apps that help manage your business?
That's a great one. Well, I mentioned Scribe earlier.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be looking into that. It's
amazing. It's amazing. So that's great for creating processes. I would say, so we use a CRM called Dubsado to manage inquiries and leads. We use a project management tool, Asana, which is great for working together as a team, collaborating. We use a time tracking app called Clockify, which helps us monitor what we're doing and track our time and see where it's going and what is valuable and what is not. Those are a few apps to try. Or I would say better to focus on the types of software rather than specific things. It's not like you have to use Asana for project management. You have to use Dubsado as a CRM. Like, these are key software components that will help you manage your business, and the specific one that works for you will depend on your business and how you operate. But I would say they are cornerstones. Some sort of CRM, some sort of project management tool, and tracking your time is we've talked about time a lot. Just having something that monitors what you're doing, and at the end of the day you can look back and go, because it's so easy to be like, what happened to that day? What did I do? Just look back and be really critical about where you spend your time and potentially what you could give to other people. Yeah,
good stuff, man. I've been trying to find the right project management and CRM for myself for ages, and I keep trying different ones, and I don't know, nothing's like feeling quite right. But I think it doesn't really matter. They all do the same thing. I just need to pick one, learn it, and maybe because that's the issue. I think is because it takes a bit of time to actually learn how to use them and how to implement them in your business, and that's where I'm sure I've
definitely been in that position, and it is that kind of trade-off of perfectionism versus progress, because I don't think any tool is until you get to the level where you're having engineers design bespoke software for you, which is some very, very high powered level. No tool is going to be perfect, but you just have to get as close as you can and then fill in the gaps.
Yeah. Good stuff. This has been really fun, man. I've really enjoyed it. It's been
I've had
really
a great time.
Yeah. It's been really interesting learning about your business. So, I mean, I think you mentioned a link already, but yeah, if people wanted to connect with you or find out more about you, where would you send them?
Great. Yeah. Well, I already mentioned my personal page. So at Tim Sentence, TIMSENTANC on Instagram. I would love to hear from anyone in the music industry or creative industry who is thinking of starting their business or is in the middle of building their business, just to connect and share, as we spoke about being lonely as a business owner and building a network. So I'm still in the process of connecting with people who are on a similar journey to me. And all of my lessons have been learned from other people. Yeah. It's very hard to learn lessons from your own life. It's much easier to chat about it and learn from each other. So that would be great to connect. And then obviously musicians, or if there do happen to be any couples listening to this podcast, check out Boujee Music. So BOUJEE Music. That's the name of our website, bougeemusic.com, or on all social media platforms. We're Boujee Music Live. Check us out. We're always looking for talented musicians to work with. And so I'd love to hear from any musicians who are looking to get into the function game or the wedding game, get some more work, and hopefully be treated extremely well by us.
Yeah, awesome, man. Love that. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting to me.
Thanks, Jack. Loved it. Thank you for having me.
So there we go. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. I know it's been a bit heavier on the business side of things, but I know that there's some really valuable information in there. And I just want to say a massive thank you to Tim for coming on and chatting to me. But that's it for this one. Take it easy, and I'll catch you next week for episode 14.